"Hey, Trent, how are you doing?" my brother asked in a tone that seemed far too serious for an out-of-the-blue call on a Wednesday night. "I'm good, Theo," I replied apprehensively. "To what do I owe the honor?" He hesitated. "Look, brother, there's no way to sugarcoat this, so I'll just come out and say it. Stella got married." I heard the words, but they weren't registering. Theo waited silently as I processed what he'd said. Stella Reed. The girl who lived next door to me when we grew up together in our small town in Colorado. The girl who I moved to Los Angeles with after we graduated high school, so we could strike it big in Hollywood. The girl who had become the greatest love of my life. The girl I always thought would come back to me, because we were meant to be together. Stella Reed was married. "Trent? Are you still there?" "Yeah," I replied, my voice hoarse. "I'm still here." "Are you?" "When?" I interrupted. "What? When did she get married?" Theo was silent for a moment, then reluctantly answered, "Last week, I hear." I let his words sink in. "Trent? I've got to go, Theo." I ended the call. I set my phone down on my writing desk, next to my laptop. Standing in front of the desk, I looked out the window of my apartment toward the distant lights of downtown Los Angeles, and I stewed on what Theo had said. I felt something wet and warm hit the back of my hand. Then I felt it again. I glanced down at my hand, just in time to catch a glistening droplet of liquid falling and splattering where the other two had landed. It was only then that I realized I was crying. Once the realization struck me, it was Niagara Falls. I exhaled a body-racking sob that originated from somewhere deep in my chest, from deep in my soul, while my tears flowed freely. I thought I'd have more time. I thought I'd have another chance. I was wrong. I picked up my phone and opened the text messages app. I had to search for her name, it had been so long since we last communicated. When I found our text chain, I hesitated before opening it. When I finally opened the thread, I saw that it had been 18 months since the last time we communicated with each other. The last words we ever exchanged. I read them for the first time in so long. "Maybe we need a break, Trent." Maybe we do. When I wrote that, I thought a break would mean a couple weeks. Maybe a month. I never imagined it would be forever. I went to the fridge and grabbed a beer as I stared at my screen. Before I knew it, the beer bottle was empty. I grabbed another as I continued to analyze the last words we'd written to each other. The second bottle was empty soon after. Without thinking, I clicked on the message window and began typing a text to Stella. "Congratulations." I hoped she could feel the sarcasm I'd poured into that single word. Hoped she felt my scorn. I stared at my screen for an hour after I sent the text. 3 more beer bottles were empty before I finally set my phone down, stumbled into bed, and passed out. She hadn't responded. I felt like shit when I woke up the next morning. I rarely drank, so 5 beers in less than 2 hours did a number on my head. I grabbed 2 Advil, a glass of water, and swallowed the Advil. Returning to my bedroom with the glass, I picked up my phone and saw I had a text from Stella. I chugged the rest of my water, then opened the message. "Can I see you?" She sent the message 3 hours earlier, at 4 o'clock in the morning. My mind raced. I didn't understand why she wanted to see me after all the time that had passed. My thumbs were itching to write her back. I typed out and deleted a dozen responses before I settled on when and where. She didn't respond immediately. I gave it 10 minutes, then went about my day. All week, prior to Theo's call, I'd had a burst of energy and ideas working on a new movie script. Between the lingering hangover and the news about Stella, my momentum had come to a screeching halt. At noon, I decided to break for an early lunch in the hope that it would help clear my head and allow me to focus. I took a walk outside and headed toward Sunset Junction. I'd moved into the trendy, bohemian area of Silver Lake around 9 months ago, after I finally got my big break. For a writer, Silver Lake was one of the places to be and, more importantly, to be seen. I grabbed a coffee from Intelligentsia, where all the hipsters congregated for their daily injection of caffeine, then walked down to Tacos Delta. Tacos Delta was takeout only, though it has a few seats around the building. I wanted good food that would help with a hangover, and no company. I ordered a plate of chili verde, al pastor, and carne asada tacos from the window, then took a seat on the small patio area. Nibbling slowly on my tacos, while ignoring the rice and beans, I felt my phone vibrate. Eagerly, I pulled it from my pocket. I had a new text from Stella. "Saturday at 8 o'clock? Your place? Do you still live in Hollywood Hills?" I hadn't expected her to want to see me at all, let alone so soon. And at my apartment no less. I'd initially reached out to Stella from a place of anger. A place of pain. Yet, as I read her message, some of the old feelings began to bubble up. I was anxious to see her. Desperate to see her. I'm free this Saturday at 8. But I live in Silver Lake now. I sent her a link to my apartment. This time she responded immediately. I'll see you then. At 5 minutes after 8 o'clock, I began to wonder if the usually punctual Stella had changed her mind and decided not to come over. I resumed pacing around my apartment, following my usual figure-8 pattern around the couch and my kitchen table, the route I took to work through writer's block or visualize a dialogue. Only now, I was working out what I would say to her if and when she arrived. The past few days had dragged on at a torturously slow pace. I couldn't focus on the script I'd been working on. My mind was preoccupied with memories of Stella and speculation about why she wanted to see me. I ultimately ended up spending most of my time counting down the minutes until our encounter, which only made the appointed time and place seem farther away. On the plus side, once I realized Stella was coming over, I returned to my normal good habits: gym, jogging, a mostly pescatarian diet, and no alcohol. I wanted to look and feel my best when I saw her. A woman I hadn't seen nor spoken to in a year and a half, I was suddenly concerned with her opinion of me. For that reason, I was dressed in a light blue dress shirt, black jeans and black dress shoes, the color scheme Stella once told me looked best on me since it paired with my blue eyes and black hair. A knock at the front door of my apartment shook me out of my head. Freed from my pondering, I became uncomfortably aware of my quickening pulse and dry throat. What an irony that would have been, I thought as I walked toward the front door, a nervous, tongue-tied storyteller. With a deep breath to calm my nerves, I unlocked and opened the door. Standing outside the door to my apartment, looking every bit as beautiful as I remembered her, was my childhood sweetheart. The one and only girl I'd ever wanted. The only one I'd ever loved. "Can I come in?" she asked hesitantly, her blue-gray eyes briefly meeting mine before looking past me and into the room. "Of course," I replied, stepping aside and holding the door open. "Please, come in." Stella walked inside, her brown-heeled booties clacking on the hardwood floor as she looked around my apartment. While she took in the scenery, I took her in. She was still breathtaking, with luscious, wavy auburn hair that ended at the midpoint of her shoulder blades, fair skin, and full lips. The chocolate-colored V-neck sweater shirt fit her like a glove, accentuating her perfect round breasts, while the form-fitting blue jeans highlighted her long shapely legs. Yet it was her eyes, the ones taking in my apartment and avoiding me, that had always been her most remarkable feature. Like a stormy sky, they seemed to change color from blue to gray depending on her mood or the lighting. They looked blue to me at that moment. "I like your apartment," she said absently, her eyes still dodging me. "Thanks," I replied. "Can I get you something to drink?" "Do you have any wine?" she asked, looking at my writing desk and running her fingers on my laptop. "I have a Roro Arnice," I replied. That got her attention. She finally looked at me. Her gaze nearly floored me. I was looking into the eyes of the girl who was my first everything: best friend, girlfriend, kiss, love, lover, and heartbreak. Stella and I became neighbors when we were 5 years old, after my family moved from Littleton to Breckenridge. Despite its popularity as a skiing and snowboarding destination, few people lived in the area. Stella was one of the few kids nearby, and the only one my age. With our shared love of the outdoors, and a similar taste in movies, we became friends instantly. Had we not grown up together, and become best friends, I never would have had a chance at Stella Reed. After puberty hit, I grew to be 6 feet tall, fit, and reasonably good-looking. Though, it was my mind and wit that most people seemed to find attractive about me, and which opened my career path. Stella, however, grew into a stunning woman. She was 5 feet 7 inches, with long legs, rich auburn hair, a brilliant smile, and those stormy, color-changing eyes. She looked like a movie star. Fortunately for me, she had taken a liking to me before her star ascended, much to the chagrin of every warm-blooded male who laid eyes on her. After we graduated high school, we moved to California together. I attended college at USC, studying in the film department, and trying to make connections, in the hope that I would become a screenwriter. Stella attended an acting school with dreams of becoming a star. Everyone in our hometown thought she would be a famous actress one day. Together, we thought we could be Hollywood's next power couple. Our dreams never came to fruition. 1 year after I graduated from college, Stella and I broke up. "I'd love a glass of Roro Arnice," Stella replied with a sad smile, her now gray eyes watching me attentively. I pulled the bottle from the fridge and uncorked it, as Stella slowly made her way over toward me, the clacking of her heels filling the room. "Is that the same one we drank?" "Yes," I answered before she finished her question. "It was the wine label we drank to celebrate the 8th anniversary of the day I asked her to be my girlfriend, and also when I graduated from college. I'd bought the bottle of wine I was now opening to celebrate our 9th year together or our engagement, whichever came first. We never made it. I kept the wine. It's Bruno Giacosa." I grabbed 2 wine glasses, then poured a glass for each of us. I didn't drink often. Yet, tonight, a drink seemed appropriate. Perhaps even necessary. Handing her a glass, her fingers brushed against mine and our eyes met for a split second. In that instant, I thought I saw a hint of the girl I held in my arms so many times. An echo of the girl who loved me. "Thank you," she said. Then she added, "You look great, Trent." "You look as beautiful as ever, Stella," I said hoarsely, followed by a drink to wet my dry throat. "Thanks," she replied softly, her eyes leaving mine as she turned and walked back toward my writing desk, looking out the window toward the city lights. "I hear you finally had success with one of your scripts." "Yes," was my one-word reply, as I watched her gracefully move about my apartment, evading me. When she realized I wasn't offering any more, she turned and looked at me. She flashed me a playful smile, one that I had seen so many times and had always loved. "Well, are you going to tell me about it?" "Well," I began, trying to warm up to her, "I sold a script to Magnum Productions, which is owned by a Hollywood heavy hitter named Don Mitchell. He took the script and pitched it to Netflix, who bought the rights. It's in post-production now and will hopefully come out within the next 6 months." "Congratulations, Trent," she beamed, nearly knocking me off my feet with her sensational smile that made her blue eyes sparkle. "That's wonderful. What was the script?" "The Addict," I replied softly as I watched her smile falter. "The one that was based on your uncle?" she asked, her voice tight. "The one." "Yes," I interrupted, not wanting to hear her say it. "It was the script I had been working on in college and after I graduated. One of the primary sources of the constant arguments that ultimately led to our breakup. In the year leading up to our split, Stella and I fought all the time. We had accrued a mountain of debt between my private school education, her acting classes, and the cost of living in Los Angeles. We'd hoped that success in Hollywood would eliminate that debt, yet both of us were struggling to catch a break. Stella was working 2 waitressing jobs while trying to audition for roles. She always seemed to end up as the second choice. I was working a variety of editing jobs, even editing college papers and essays at one point. We were so desperate for money while also trying to find time to finish my script. Toward the end, Stella and I barely saw each other because of how much we were working. When we did see each other, we constantly fought over our finances, the lack of time spent together, or my inability to find time to finish my script. It got so bad that, although we had been best friends and together for over 8 years, our last conversation was a pair of one-sentence text messages. "Well, I'm glad to hear you finished your script," she offered shakily. "At least something good came from it." I didn't know how to respond. There were no words. Thankfully, Stella changed the subject. "What are you working on now?" she asked, her smile trying to break through the storm that was reflected in her gray eyes. "A Western," I answered cheerfully. Don Mitchell and Netflix were impressed with my writing, and when they heard I grew up in Colorado, they asked how I felt about writing a Western. It's the Yellowstone effect. Yellowstone became so popular, other networks are looking to copy its success and take some of its market share. And with Netflix, I can afford to write a script that's a little more steamy, I chuckled. Stella's resulting smile broke the gloom, bringing a sparkle to her blue eyes. "I'm happy for you, Trent. You finally made it. I can't think of anyone who deserves it more than you." "Thanks, Stella. But what about you?" I asked. "Are you still acting?" "No," she replied sadly, her eyes falling to the floor. "David would prefer that I not work. Said I don't need to work another day in my life." David Anderson. Stella's husband. I knew who he was. Saw the picture of them together on social media 3 months after Stella and I split up. The same day I deleted all my social media accounts so I wouldn't have to see her with anyone else. I looked him up afterwards and got some intel from my family, who were still close with Stella's family back in Colorado. At 48 years old, David was almost twice Stella's age. He was a divorcee with 3 kids from his ex-wife. Stella was his young, new trophy wife. As a trust fund kid who took his inherited wealth and bought dozens of car dealerships in the greater Los Angeles area, David Anderson was one of the elites who was helping to ensure the cycle of wealth and poverty remained alive and well in the 21st century, even in the progressive state of California. It broke my heart to hear that her new husband didn't want Stella to work. I never imagined that anything would stop Stella Reed from becoming an A-list actress, I offered with a half-hearted smile. I tried to hold back the rest of what I was thinking but failed. Even when you offered to take on a full-time job and give up your dream of acting, when things got tight, I wouldn't let you do it. I knew how much it meant to you. Stella sniffed lightly, briefly caught my gaze with her gray eyes, and gave me a sad smile. Then she was quiet. Thinking of something, I could tell. Do you remember when I practiced my temptress role on you while you were still in school? She asked, her smile returning in full force and lightening the mood. Her question shocked me. I could never forget Stella's temptress role. During my second year at USC, Stella was working on a part for her acting class where she played a sexy secretary trying to seduce her married boss. Each night, she practiced her lines with me, which inevitably got me so worked up that I would eventually launch myself at her and drag her to our bedroom. As Stella's acting improved, the sex got hotter. For one scorching month, we had the best sex of our lives. Of course I remember, Stella, I answered with a grin, though my joy at recalling that period was dampened by my confusion over why she brought it up in the first place. It was one of the best times of my life. It was? I trailed off. It was what? She pressed me to continue. Why are you asking me about that, Stella? I asked, changing the subject, and fighting back the pain in my chest and the lump in my throat. Why are you here? She swallowed. I'm not sure, she admitted quietly. I just saw your text and I needed to see you. Why? Why did you text me? I asked you first, I replied with a subtle smirk. And yet you're going to answer first, she fired back with a smirk of her own. Seeing the mirth in her blue eyes, I knew she was right. I texted you because I heard you'd gotten married, and it hurt me. And I wanted you to know you hurt me, I admitted, shocked at both my honesty and how easily my response came out. I'm sorry, Trent, she said softly, walking toward me, the clack of her heels filling the room once again. I never, ever wanted to hurt you. Do you love him? I asked, unsure where that question had come from. It just came out. She paused, then continued to walk toward me, her gray eyes meeting my gaze now. He makes me feel safe. And after feeling for so long that my whole world could come crashing down in an instant, it's nice to feel safe. Do you love him? I repeated. There's more than one way to love. Do you love him? My voice was louder than I'd intended, my pain getting the better of me. Stella stood silent, so I continued. Do you love him the way you once told me you loved me? That it hurts to breathe when he's not around. And does he love you the way I did? No, she conceded with a whisper. But, then again, neither did you at the end. You didn't love me the way you once did. You were so angry. So stressed out all the time. You weren't the man I'd fallen in love with. You're right, I admitted, her truth dousing my anger. I had lost my way. Lost myself. And lost sight of how much I loved you. We stared at each other for what seemed an eternity. Reflecting on all we had been through. All we once had. All that we had lost. Why are you here, Stella? I asked again, the pain in my heart growing by the second. I don't know, she deflected. That's not true. Why are you here? I guess I was curious. Curious about what? Curious to see you? Why? I guess. I don't. Why? I demanded sternly. I needed to know if you still loved me, she blurted out. I was stunned into silence. I needed to know. And if you did, I needed to feel what that was like again. Because I don't know if I even know what love is anymore. I don't remember what it even feels like. So, what, you thought you'd come here and feel loved again then go back to your new husband? I growled. And where does that leave me? Sitting here alone in the dark after the sun shines its rays on me, giving false hope? I don't know, she shouted back, though not in anger. I just needed to see you. I can't wrap my head around all the reasons, and even some of the ones I recognize, I don't understand. I just knew with every fiber of my being that I had to see you. Come back, Stella, I pleaded. Come back to me. Give it another chance. Give us another chance. I'm not in that dark place anymore. I'm back to being the man you fell in love with. Back to being the man who loves you more than anything. Give me the chance to prove that to you, please. I can't, she said weakly, her eyes shifting colors as she struggled between meeting my gaze and looking at the floor. I'm married now. I can't. You can, I assured her, gently. You don't love him. You all but said it. This was a mistake, she said nervously, unable to look at me. I should go. No, please, don't go, I implored her. Stella. I have to go, she repeated, turning her back on me and walking toward the door. With each clack of her heeled boots taking her further from me, my fear of losing her again grew exponentially. I gave chase. Stella grasped the door handle and began to open it when my palm pressed against it, forcing it shut. My hand was next to her head, my head was just behind her ear, and my body was inches from hers. She froze, her knuckles white as her hand wrapped tight around the handle. Please, Trent, she begged quietly. Let me go. I can't, I whispered in her ear. I let you go once. I can't do it again. Please, Trent, she whispered back, still unable to face me. Stella, I said softly. Look at me. Please, Trent. I can't. You wanted to know if I still loved you, I reminded her, my mouth close enough to her ear that her soft hair brushed my lips. You wanted to remember what that felt like, right? She didn't respond, but I could sense the tension in her body. Her struggle. I continued. Turn around, Stella. Turn around and remember what that felt like. Remember what it felt like to be loved by someone who loved you with all his heart. Who still loves you with all of his heart. She let go of the door handle slowly, her hand falling to her side. I watched as she struggled with what to do. With a sigh and a release of tension in her shoulders, I saw her resolve break. Stella spun slowly, her shoulder connecting with the door as she swiveled and leaned her back against it. When I saw her beautiful face come around, her eyes were closed. Look at me, Stella, I whispered, my lips so close to hers she must have felt my breath when I spoke. She opened her eyes, and I gazed into those hypnotic blue orbs. Looking back at me was the woman I loved so fiercely, for so long. All the pain I'd been feeling washed away, drowned by a tidal wave of emotions. Emotions I'd developed for her over 20 years of knowing her, and from over 8 years of loving her. I moved swiftly, pressing my mouth to hers without knowing how she would respond. This was my Stella. The only woman I ever wanted. I had to feel her lips again, regardless of the consequences. Her hands flew to my face as she returned my kiss, finding a familiar pattern, as if no time had passed. In return, my hands found her hips and pulled her firmly against me, as I deepened and slowed our kiss. Stella's hands found the back of my head, her fingers combing through my hair as she gasped at each kiss that I planted on her neck. Oh God, Trent. We shouldn't do this, she exhaled. In a flurry of activity, our clothes were quickly discarded, and I lifted her up, pinning her against the door again. We moved aggressively, making up for lost time and unsure if or when we might ever experience this again. Take me to your bed, she begged as I kissed on her earlobe while my hands rested atop hers on the door, our fingers interlaced. We moved in perfect harmony, our bodies remembering each other's rhythm. I heard a rustling in the dark, unable to see it as my mind and eyes adjusted to the pitch-black bedroom. Though I couldn't make out what was going on, I knew what was happening from the emptiness I felt in my arms and in my chest. Stella was leaving. Don't go, I said to her as I got up out of the bed. Please, Stella. Stay with me. I can't, she whispered in the dark. David thinks I went out with my girlfriends tonight. I have to go home. Leave him and come back to me, I pleaded. Don't trade love for security, Stella. You'll regret it. I love you. Come back to me, please. She didn't respond. Though I couldn't see her in the dark, I sensed she was thinking about my offer. I can't, she reiterated softly, a hint of resignation in her voice. I can provide you with the security I couldn't back then, I argued. I may not have David's money, but I make enough to support us. And I have connections in Hollywood now. I think I could get you hired as an actress, maybe even in the show that comes out of my latest script. You don't have to give up on your dream of being an actress, Stella. And if I'm still part of your dream, you don't have to give up on me either. I could sense she was crying. Though I couldn't see them, I was certain there were tears in her gray eyes. I'm sorry, she sobbed, then moved toward the living room. Wait, Stell. Please let me go, Trent, she cried. Don't you think this is hard enough on me as it is without you pressuring me to stay? I have a lot to think about, and right now I just need to go. If you really meant what you said that you still love me, then please stay in your room and let me go. I swallowed the lump in my throat, my own tears threatening to flow. But I stayed silent and didn't move. Thank you, she said, sniffling. I heard Stella gather up her clothes, get dressed, and walk out the door. The sound of her heels clacking on the hardwood floor was the last sound I heard before the front door closed. I felt a sense of accomplishment as I stared at my computer screen, at the finished first draft of my latest script. Over the past month, I'd written furiously, completing the draft much sooner than I'd anticipated. In retrospect, it shouldn't have been that surprising that I'd finished ahead of schedule. I'd thrown myself into my work so completely, I spent nearly every minute of every day working on it. Writing had been my escape. The one thing I could count on to take my mind off Stella. I hadn't heard from her in a month, not since the night we made love. By this point, I resigned myself to the fact that I'd lost her. Again. In response, I'd put a wall up around my heart, and delved completely into my writing, all to avoid having to deal with the heartache of losing her once more. Over the past week, I had just started to feel like I'd gotten back to some sense of normalcy. I was about to stand up and get a glass of water when I heard my phone vibrate. I'd placed it on my writing desk, next to my keyboard. I looked over and saw I had received a text from Stella. "Can I see you?" When I read those 4 familiar words, I saw my possible future so vividly. I was at a crossroads. Down one path, I saw darkness. A life in which I would forever be the man Stella came to for love, while she left me for her husband's security each night. A life of constant rejection and pain. That path would destroy me. Yet, down the other path I saw hope. A future in which Stella and I rediscovered what we had lost. Rebuilt it stronger. A life where she pursued her dream of becoming an actress, and in which we would get married and raise a family. Our happily ever after. I could not predict which path I would find myself on if I agreed to see Stella. But I was certain that, if I let her back into my life, it would be one of those two. There were no other outcomes, and the only other option would be to reject her request and go on living as I had, in a place where I was neither truly happy nor sad. Just numb. I knew in my heart that one of those outcomes awaited me. I stared at my phone, considering what to write. It was all or nothing if I agreed to see her. I could have everything I ever wanted, or step into a cycle that would slowly kill me. Or I could reject her, sparing myself from the worst outcome, but also foregoing the best. My life would be determined by what I wrote next. I started typing.